On. Hi, and welcome to the first episode of PEP Talks Uncut. I'm David Moore, your host, and for the next 30 minutes, we'll be speaking with Matt Manglona. And Matt is, and I got to say this as a disclaimer, Matt is a former student of mine from a program in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. A brief note about the show. We'll be interviewing a number of guests from across Pennsylvania, either current or former residents here. They are a part of the LGBTQ plus community, or they're allies to the LGBTQ community. Our interviews will last 30 minutes. They won't be edited, and they are unscripted. So let's begin with our first question. So Matt, are you single or married?
I'm currently married, just recently so.
That's excellent. What's the name of your husband?
His name is Christopher.
Christopher. I asked husband instead of wife because your sexual orientation happens to be
Gay.
as is mine, full disclosure. All right, so let's back up a step. First of all, can you explain a little bit about how you and Chris met?
Well, a while back, he was up here visiting in Pennsylvania to get spend a little bit more time with his family. He's kind of been separated from them a little bit longer than he'd like to. So while he was up here, we just ended up hanging out one particular night. And after a couple of bottles of beer, we were hanging out, just really enjoying each other's company. And a little bit after about a week of spending time together, we really realized that we liked each other and wanted to take things to the next level. So we ended up calling it an official relationship at that point, and he canceled his flight back to his previous home down in Memphis. So after that point, we were just two peas in a pod, just spending as much time together as we'd like to, going out there, having fun, enjoying different scenery around here, because he wasn't too familiar with the area. So I was happy enough to kind of show him around and all the different cool experiences that we have up here in around the Erie area.
Well, that sounds like an amazing love story. So you were together a week, and then you realized that there was some sort of connection between the two of you, far stronger than his desire to pack up and leave for Tennessee.
Exactly. So he had left a bad relationship and stuff down there. And while he came up here, he was planning on spending he had already spent a couple of months up here. And I had just recently exited military. So I was trying to get reconformed into civilian, the civilian world out here. And while I was doing that, I just happened across him, and then we just ended up hanging out together, enjoying each other's company, and went from there.
So among the things you just told us was that you were a part of the military. What branch?
I was in the Army.
The Army. So while you served in the Army, were you National Guard, Reserve, or full duty, full active duty?
I was of the Reserve component.
Okay. What did you do while in the Army? What was your job?
My MOS was 88 Mike, or Motor Transport Specialist. Basically consisted of driving a tractor trailer combinations like a semi and rigs, hauling fuel.
So, okay, so you're gay and you're in the military and you're driving a truck for a living. That's
not the most common picture you typically see out there, but yes, that was the reality of it.
Right. So, I mean, stereotypically, when a lot of people think of the LGBTQ community, one of the first things that comes to mind is maybe they're hairdressers or florists or something along those lines. But a truck driver in the Army, that's impressive. So in your job, did you find when you were on duty any issues with your sexual orientation? Did that play a role at all?
So to some degree, and I think some of it might have been my own personal agenda. So while I was in basic training, I had still identified as a straight individual. However, after going into AIT, or my specialized training, when I had gone through that process, I had just kind of left it as like, hey, people don't ask, I don't tell. And probably after maybe 2 months of being in that, I started opening up to some of my comrades or battle buddies, if you call them. And I told them like, hey, this is me. This is the actual person I am and who I identify as. And I got a lot more acceptance than I was expecting. However, with the military, you kind of get all types of people out there. So it wasn't without a couple of people being a little bit more skeptic around my sexual orientation. But I mean, for the most part, a lot of people opened me with open arms, and I can have been more appreciative of it.
So as we're in Pride Month now, today being Sunday, June 6th, I gotta say, how does it feel to be out of the closet?
So, thinking about when I was identifying as a straight individual as to who I am now, I mean, it's been a huge change. I mean, when I was just, I believe I was about 18 years old or just shy of 19 when I had come out of the closet and finally told my friends and family and resultantly the community that I was gay. It was a big change for me because I mean, coming from a little farm in the middle of nowhere on an Angus farm out there, my family was always a little bit more Republican on that side of the ideals, or conservative rather. So coming out to them was the biggest leap of faith. And when I did so, it was scary. I mean, that was the easiest way of describing it. Is I wasn't sure how they were going to respond, and I mean, I knew they loved me, they cared for me, and that's all I could ever ask for them. But when I had come out with that piece of information, I wasn't too sure of what their reaction might be. But I mean, they loved me, they trusted me. So I mean, I was very fortunate to have a family that embraced that decision of, well, not rather decision, that part of me that I wasn't expecting him to, or at least not as much as they did. And to where we are now, it was a huge leap of faith, and I can be more thankful of it.
Sounds like a very uplifting story of coming out. I know for a lot of people, when they come out of the closet, things go suddenly very wrong, and they find themselves losing friends, they find themselves losing family members. If you come out at a particular age, like 16, 17, you may find yourself getting kicked out of the only house and home you've ever known. But you didn't experience that, did you?
No, I didn't. I was fortunate on that side, but unfortunately, my husband Christopher, he had some struggles with that side of things, and he felt some pain and rejection because of being open and honest with himself towards his family and community. It's very unfortunate that he had to have gone through those kind of struggles. But I mean, speaking to me individually, I was very openly accepted within my community for the most part. I mean, there's always been a couple of second glances, people criticize me from their sides steps and everything like that. But for the people that I care about, for the people that I work with on a daily basis, they treat me just as a regular individual. And I know not too long ago, that wasn't the reality for a lot of people out there. And I'm fortunate. I don't have a story that a lot of people are able to share. And I mean, for me, being able to have the experience that I did while still having the upbringing, the community that I was surrounded in, not only for me, but for others, it was surprising that I had gotten so much acceptance within my community.
Yeah, you're very fortunate in that regard. So you said you came out about 18, 19 years old, and you came out while in the Army. Let's back up a few years, back to when you were like 15, 16 years old. Did you have any inkling back then that you were gay?
So I'd never said anything to anybody, whether it be my partners or family members, but I think we all, when you're kind of questioning things, you just go to the internet for advice. And of course, being the naive 14, 15-year-old, I got on there and was searching up on Google, gay test. Not the most forthcoming piece of information out there. However, the results concluded that I was ambisexual, meaning that I had a sexual drive for both genders, whether it male, female, or whatever in between. However, I would only see myself being with one particular gender if I interpreted that right at the age of 14. But either case, what I had considered myself was more or less bisexual, but I never saw myself being in a relationship with a man. Because, I mean, being in the community, being with the family that I was brought up in, I had just kind of told myself, like, hey, one day you're going to have a wife, one day you're going to have a kids. And although you might express that side of yourself from one point to another, it would never become a reality, which bottled up inside and it hurt. And eventually at the age of 18, it just kind of broke out and I was open with myself and with my family.
Well, you're very fortunate to live in the time that you do. Back in 1990, as I was coming out of the closet in a fairly grand way, back then, my boyfriend and I could not marry. We weren't legally allowed to adopt children, and Ohio was still a primitive state. The LGBTQ community was reeling over the AIDS crisis, and new drug cocktails were just coming on the scene. So we were seen as a pariah, if you will, back then. But now we've come a long way, and I think in our age of social acceptance, younger and younger people are accepting who they are, and they're accepting who their friends truly are. Now, did you find that to be the case when you were in high school? And full confession, you and I did know each other back during your high school days. Can you shed some light on that?
So yeah, I mean, going through high school, it was kind of funny. One of the first people I had come out to happened to be my principal, and it was due to an incident that I wasn't foreseeing happening. So a little bit of a backstory on that one. So I was part of the varsity wrestling team back then, and as contrary to many people believed, I really did enjoy the sport for the sake of the sport. But I ended up having a little bit of a crush on one of the members of the team. And when I had kind of gone about it, I had slipped a note or two into his locker, and it's like, hey, I'm not even sure if this is something you would pursue, but if so, just let me know and I can go about it. And after 2 days of no responses, I was kind of figuring like, oh, well, I guess it was just hopeful thinking. And then the next day I got called into the principal's office, and I was like, oh, what am I doing here? I'm a pretty decent student. I don't get in trouble too often. And then he said like, hey, why are you messing with this kid? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He pulled up on the camera. He's like, why are you slipping these notes into this kid's locker? And I was like, well, I mean, it was more or less, I had feelings for the kid. And I mean, being that kid that had just gone through basic training, been on the varsity team, had multiple girlfriends and stuff through high school, the principal didn't happen to have any type of inkling of what I may have been actually hiding in my inside myself. And then he just kind of said like, okay, well, that's understandable. I apologize for intruding on that. But he doesn't reciprocate it, so please call good. And I did, backed off, and went on from there. And it was all good from that point. I mean, it wasn't anything serious. It was just something that's like, oh, well, he thought I may have been bullying him. However, the circumstances around it may have been a little bit misleading at the time, thinking back in retrospect.
Oh, sure. So hypothetically, do you think the principal would have behaved the same way if you were female, attracted to the wrestler?
Probably not. I mean, like maybe if the student in question were to have brought it up as a issue like that, he probably would have taken a similar action. However, he might not have had that prejudgment prior to me entering the room.
Very interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about that magical day? It happened not too long ago up at Peek and Peak in New York. The magical day when you walked down the aisle and you met Chris as he came in, and you got married. What was your wedding day like? What were you thinking of when you were standing, getting, exchanging vows?
Well, as corny as it is, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people testify out there when you're standing up there at the altar and you see your significant other just trailing after you, everybody's eyes just turn and look to the corner, waiting for them to enter the room. It really makes your heart sing. And for me, in that moment, I was the happiest I could ever be. And like I said, it is a little bit of a cliche on that side, but ultimately that's really what I felt in that moment, was just pure love and knowing that, like, this is the person I plan on spending the rest of my life with, and knowing that all the people in this room are here to support us, love us, and contribute to our family. And it was a real magical day.
Not to give Peek and Peek too much of a plug on our show, but how did you find the staff at the inn? Did they treat you and Chris with all the respect and dignity that you believe you deserved?
Yeah, to a serious extent. I mean, something that I had not realized at the time of our wedding until much later on in the day. We were their first wedding for several years hence. And since then, apparently they said that we were the most important people on campus because of the crowd that we had brought in, the business that we were bringing. They gave us a VIP treatment, and I wasn't expecting half of that. I was expecting it more or less to be a venue, and that was what I was signing up for. That's what I was anticipating. But the Peek and Peek staff and crew, they gave us as much of a beautiful ceremony as they possibly could deliver upon. The service was amazing, and there was no disrespect, nothing derogatory that you could see out there. So, I mean, like I said, I am a rare story in the community, but it's the fact that a lot of the people that I interact with, it's nothing but respect and acceptance. And Peek and Peek, especially, they had offered that to us, and we thank you greatly for all the services that they were able to provide, and the quality in which they were able to bring it.
Well, that's astounding. It really is. It's good to hear that businesses out there are supportive of the LGBTQ community in ways beyond just putting up a pride flag because it's Pride Month, and maybe knocking 20% off of food and drinks at a restaurant, just because you happen to be a gay couple. That's the kind of experience that we like to see happen throughout the course of the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings me to my next question, and it regards COVID. So did COVID-19 play any role? Did you have to wear your masks when you were exchanging vows?
No, we were fortunate enough where they had allowed us, as well as our concession, to be able to remove the masks. However, our family members would have to keep theirs on, as they were within a close proximity of one another out there in the gallery. But as for us up on the front of the altar and everything, we were free to remove our masks for the time of the ceremony, so we could take a wedding photo of what the world's supposed to be like.
Exactly. So I've taken to calling things in a strange way. A BC to me means before COVID, and AD will refer to after the disease is gone. So, so I think we're in year one. Okay, we're back to the year. We just started the whole calendar all over again.
Mm-hmm.
That would make you, if my calculations are right, you're about 2 months old now.
2 months old, fair enough.
Okay, so you and your husband, did you get your vaccines?
We have not. Me personally, I had COVID probably maybe 4 months into the actual pandemic per se.
Mm-hmm.
During which time, I mean, like, I had suffered it. It sucks by all means. I mean, it felt like a pretty bad flu that tended to last. And the hardest part about it is the lasting effects, which I have since then lost all sense of smell, and it's definitely become a little bit of a crush in my life. But I mean, it's just one of my senses. So I mean, like I can definitely live without it. However, it is kind of disheartening with that fact in mind. Christopher, he was exposed to it. However, he was never symptomatic. So he was fortunate on that side.
Well, I would think so. And to me, it would be very disappointing if on my wedding day, I couldn't even smell the wedding cake or smell all of the various alcoholic beverages which are consumed. Usually, I'm only guessing what you enjoyed at your wedding.
Well, I must say the hardest part was missing the smell of the flowers, because those things were beautiful, and I definitely wished I had been able to smell those.
Absolutely. You're right. You served in the military, and on January 6th of this year, a group of semi-armed individuals overran the exterior of the Capitol building in Washington and started to attack or invade the Capitol on the day that the Electoral College ballots were being counted in the House of Representatives. And I'd like to get your opinion on that. Was it an insurrection, or were they patriots fighting for their country?
Honestly, I mean, like there is a huge difference there. And I think with the people that were participating in those events, they were out of line. I mean, like ultimately, this is the country that we live in. This is the country and government that we support. And whether you support all their decisions or not, there is a proper channel in which to air these and get them addressed. However, breaching and raiding a Capitol building, putting innocent people in harm's way, that's not the way that I would go about doing something like that. And I definitely don't think that a lot of people within our community would support either. And I mean, ultimately, it was a horrible day in American history, knowing that people of our own nation went to arms against the Capitol in defiance of some disagreements on a political channel. And ultimately, though, I mean, there is ways to go about that that don't need to lead in violence.
Absolutely. We definitely do not support violent insurrections or violent attacks on any government buildings. We, in the organization, the Pennsylvania Equality Project, believe that our government, for right or wrong, actually does serve the people. Maybe sometimes they don't serve it very well, but they do serve the people, especially, like you said, the innocent, the clerks, the secretaries, the office staff. They were not in any way involved or should have been involved in the riot.
Mm-hmm.
So looking ahead, what are your plans for you and Chris? Settling down, traveling the country, extended honeymoon? What do you plan to do?
Well, we already went on our honeymoon, so that was a fun trip. We went out there for a week. We went from Rehoboth Beach to, well, a little bit of a backstory there. So after we had gotten done with our after partying at the wedding, the morning of that, we had packed up. We had left without a destination in mind. We had just said, like, okay, we're going to hit the road. We're going to end up somewhere, some way. And then about 8 hours later, we ended up in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. After 2 days there, then we went up the Jersey Shore, had a little bit of fun down there. Then we also went to New York City, where we spent a couple of days up there, had a couple of cool experiences. So it was a beautiful weekend, being able to travel, spend a lot of time with one another, and really get to enjoy each other's company. But as for plans to the future, I mean, we're still young and looking to kind of experience a lot of things the world has to offer. My mindset tends to lean towards more exotic experiences, such as visiting the Philippines, a lot of the Central America, maybe there's a bunch of different places out there I'd love to visit. And Mexico has definitely been on the list as well. However, Chris is a little bit more biased, wanting to spend more time in the States and being able to see things within our own country.
Mhm.
However, my mindset is like, well, pesos are a lot cheaper than American dollars. I think we're going to have a lot more fun down in Mexico. That's my personal opinion, however.
Okay, so Mexico versus Germany, which one do you go with?
Oh, come on. I got to go with Mexico just because of the weather, honestly.
Really? See, I go with Germany because of the beer.
Yeah. Well, that's a fair argument right there.
Okay, but what our cameras are not capturing right now is that, unlike you, I have a dad bod. Okay, and I own that. I own that fully. I'm not proud of it. I do need to hit the gym, but Lord knows you've hit the gym several times. It shows. You've worked out over the years.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, as I think it's always should be. But I definitely put on a couple of pounds since the military.
Well, okay. So when you were in New York City, had you intended to catch a show on Broadway or maybe an off-Broadway play and found yourself disappointed because the theaters are closed?
Well, when we had gone up to New York City, I mean, it was more or less a experience for Christopher. I knew it was something that he had wanted to go up there and see for many years, always talking about it. And as you were mentioning earlier, we had participated in a summer program that allowed us an experience where we got to spend, I think it was a good couple of days up in New York and be able to see some of the more famous sites. And I was able to kind of share those experiences with Chris and being able to take him up and down the Broadview Avenue, but rather we weren't able to quite catch a show. But I mean, being able to see some of the shops, being able to ride on the subway, going down to Canal Street. I mean, there's a lot of different cool experiences that we got to see and do. So I think that was the biggest part of this trip, was just being able to say like, hey, we were here, we did it, and we definitely enjoyed ourselves.
So while you were in New York, did you get a chance to take Chris to the Statue of Liberty? I recall being there with you at one time.
Mm-hmm. It was a very cool trip. However, while we were trying to make that trip work, that was a little bit of a harder drive to make than we were anticipating. So a little bit of a sidestep there. So we were staying in New Jersey at the time and taking subway stations back and forth from the city. We're trying to get down to what's that station called? It's something with an H in it. Hoboken. There we go. Trying to get down to Hoboken to be able to catch the ferry to the island down there. It was a little bit of a harder drive just because of the city traffic and me being from the country and everything. It definitely wasn't my cup of tea trying to be able to make some of those turns.
Well, I have to agree with you. New York City traffic is not for the faint of heart. You really have to have your skills sharpened before you take on New York cabbies. And now they have all the Uber and Lyft drivers zipping around too. So yeah, it takes nerves of steel to get on the road there.
Well, don't look out the window.
Okay, so any final thoughts you'd like to share with our audience? Where you see the road lies with Chris? I'm assuming this is going to be a lifetime adventure.
Oh, well, I definitely believe it to be a lifetime adventure. And I think with us in particular, we've been very fortunate with our experiences with the people that we have around us being able to give us the life that we currently have. And it's all because people were able to treat us equally, that we had gone to the point where we were able to get married, where we were able to have a beautiful wedding, go on a honeymoon, and not experience, not that I can think of, one experience of derogative nature towards our sexual orientation. Even though we had gone along all those different places, all along those trips, and all the time that we've been together for the past 3 years, I can probably count on one hand the number of times where we've gone out there and had a negative comment due to us being with each other. Which, that being said, being able to count them is still a bad thing. But I mean, you can definitely see a huge decrease with some of the stories that are out there. And much like yours, Mr. Moore, I mean, being able to see the way that the community and the people around us have changed to accept people of different genders and different sexual orientations. It's been a huge movement, and I'm fortunate that we have had the time change as much as it has to allow us to be who we are without any type of indifference from the people around us. And for that, I'm thankful and fortunate. And for those that don't have those similar situations out there, I mean, you still have all the love and support from the LGBTQ community, and it is a lifestyle, and well, we're here to make it a better one.
Final thought before we go. Pride events coming up. Any plans to attend any Pride events?
Full-heartedly. I would love to be able to attend a couple of them. Currently, Christopher is down in Memphis, being able to bartend and stuff. It's a great industry booming down there right now, so he's trying to capitalize on that time. So I'm going to be up here during the month of Pride. So I mean, that being said, I've got a couple of friends that we're going to be able to go out there and still be able to celebrate.
Outstanding. Well, ladies and gentlemen and fellow friends of the Pennsylvania Equality Project, thank you for tuning in today. Our guest on the show today has been Matt Manglona, and unfortunately, we didn't get the opportunity to talk with his lovely husband, Chris. Tune in on Sunday, June 13th, when our invited guest will be Matt Haslam, the Eastern PA Vice President of the Pennsylvania Equality Project. Pep Talks Uncut is a production of the Pennsylvania Equality Project, all rights reserved. If you liked our show, give us a thumbs up, and be absolutely sure to subscribe to our channel. For the Pennsylvania Equality Project, I'm Dave Moore, and I look forward to talking with you all again next week.